Hello and a very warm welcome to this latest edition of Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. And my guest today is a scientist, and not just any old scientist, because he is the man who is the public face of what's been described as the scientific discovery of the decade. And here he is, Rolf-Dieter Heuer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to Berlin today to be here on Talking Germany. Great stuff. Now, Rolf-Dieter Heuer is the head of what is known as CERN, the giant particle physics laboratory located near Geneva, Switzerland, where they say that they have almost certainly discovered the particle or particles known as the Higgs boson. And that, they say, could help us unlock many of the secrets of the universe. It's fascinating stuff. And we could begin with the microscience. I don't really want to. I want to start with feelings. You're the man who is at the heart of this project that may lead to giving us the key to unlock the secrets of the universe. What does it feel like?
Good. No, it feels great. I mean, if we would have much more time, I could describe you how this feeling started to develop and to increase in a more and more positive sense over the period of 12 months. It was an amazing period until we could finally say, we have it.
Yeah. And I mean, let's go back to July 2012, last year, when you made the initial announcement that it looked very good, that you had made the discovery you'd been seeking to make. There were scientists in that room where you made the announcement. I mean, you're a football fan, yeah? There were scientists who were going around like this as though they'd scored a goal. Just describe that emotional feeling, being in the middle of it.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And also the leaders of the experiments who announced their results, they felt the same way. We were all touched, overwhelmed, and only realized a little bit later what we have found there, what we have made there. It was fantastic.
And all this good work has been done at the organisation that you are the head of, CERN, in Switzerland, near Geneva. Tell us a little bit more about the organisation so that we're in the picture there.
The organisation was founded in 1954, and the first discussions started in 1949, shortly after the World War. And there were people with a lot of foresight, with a lot of vision, although the word vision is sometimes misused, but they had a vision. And their vision was, we need to have a laboratory where we can compete with other regions. And such a laboratory is too big for a single country. And so 12 countries signed the original treaty in 1954. Today, we are 20 countries, and we have several countries in accession to membership. So despite the fact that we are nearly 60 years old, we are still attractive.
And the 20 countries that are on board so far, they're all European countries.
They are all European countries,
The other countries who are wanting to get involved these days, who are they?
They are also from Europe, but also from outside Europe, because 2010, we made a historic decision on the political or on the diplomatic side. We have changed the E, the meaning of the E in CERN from Europe to everywhere.
Yeah.
That means all countries, independent of their geographical location, can become members or associate members. And now we are getting more and more countries who want to become involved because they see it not only as a scientific institution, but as an institution where you work for peace. So it is science for peace, or it is science diplomacy.
Just explain that a little bit more. How do you work for peace, working at CERN?
First of all, it was founded shortly after the World War. So to have the countries working together in science at that moment was already helping the peace process, yeah? Or the process of understanding each other. And today, we have around 100 nationalities registered at CERN who come. So people with these nationalities, they come to CERN, do their research work. And we have people from India working with people from Pakistan, people from Israel working with people from the Palestinian territories. And that all works because we just speak one single language. And that is science, because science is a universal language. Okay. And then you can work together. It works fantastically, really.
Great stuff, a great message. First insights there from Rolf-Dieter Heuer. Here is more.
Rolf-Dieter Heuer is Director General at CERN, the Swiss-based laboratory where thousands of scientists from all over the world carry out particle physics research. Heuer is both a top manager and a committed physicist who likes getting to the bottom of things. When he took on his post in early 2009, CERN was going through a difficult phase. A year earlier, the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC, had broken down shortly after it went online. The LHC, the world's largest particle accelerator, is at the heart of the CERN complex. The financial crisis back then also put pressure on the budget. The 20 countries participating in the CERN project reined in their contributions. But despite the cost-cutting measures he had to implement, the researchers still have praise for their director.
Before taking decisions, he's able to listen to everybody in the field. And very often, he gives a weight to what is listening. So he gives appreciation to the judgment and opinions of the people.
He's very open, very friendly, smiling. He has a very special sense of humor that he maintains also in the very delicate and difficult situations.
His gift for dealing with complexity was noticed when he was still at school. Heuer went on to study physics in Stuttgart near his hometown of Boll and struggled at first with the syllabus. He got his doctorate in 1977 in Heidelberg. He worked at various institutes in Germany and taught at the University of Hamburg. He's always been involved in basic research. He's also loved football since his youth and plays as a goalkeeper. Rolf-Dieter Heuer describes himself as an incurable optimist, a useful trait in the field of science where there are always setbacks. He's guided CERN successfully through hard times. But here, where scientists are trying to confirm the theories on the structure of matter, there have also been repeated successes to celebrate. At the Globe, CERN's new landmark and visitors center, the public can learn how physicists detect new particles created by the collisions in the LHC. One of Heuer's tasks is to communicate what basic research is, and to explain that the Large Hadron Collider at CERN does not create black holes or explosives from antimatter, as some Hollywood films have claimed. The physicist is involved in the ambitious scientific goal of explaining the universe around us, from the Big Bang to the present and beyond. And today, he's our guest on Talking Germany, Rolf-Dieter Heuer.
And Rolf-Dieter Heuer, when people like me are talking about science, we often tend to say there are people who are good at science and people who are not so good at science. What's the difference between the two?
The difference is that people who are good on science, they have overcome the threshold to work with scientific matters, and the others are still in front of the threshold. And they should jump across it, because science can be rather easy. That sounds strange. But in my public talks, I never use equations. You can explain the logic. You cannot fully understand everything at the end. You need mathematics for it. But at least you can explain what are the connections between different things, what is the logic behind it. And you can explain the fascination, and people should jump across that. And
we saw some wonderful shots of you in your early days there.
These are a long time ago.
Exactly. Can you remember a moment where the fascination with science for you actually began, like a big bang?
Yeah? In school.
In school?
It started in school.
Yeah. It was a teacher?
It was also the teacher, yes, because the teacher was not demanding that I learn equations, but he was exactly demanding the logic. Yeah? And the experiments I did in school, they were completely wrong. I mean, the results were wrong. But I learned what are the problems to do, how problematic it is to do easy experiments. Yeah. And then I thought, okay, if you can do this and you learn the problems, then you can also do more complicated experiments.
Okay. You've gone on. You had a successful academic career. You've had a successful career at CERN now. You were appointed in 2009, and I've got a cheeky question for you, if I may. Why did they choose you?
You have to ask them.
Oh, come on. Come on, don't be so coy. Yeah?
Well, you see, you need somebody, well, that's my job description. You need somebody who is accepted in the community.
Yeah.
And you need also somebody who is accepted in the community of the funding agencies, politicians, diplomacy.
Yeah.
And you need somebody who has shown that he or she can motivate people.
Yeah.
can get people to work together and not against each other.
Where does it, I mean, in the report, you're described as as a manager. You're described as a man who's got a great sort of sense of humour that you use very strategically.
Yeah, even the British have to learn a sense of humour.
I've heard you described as a diplomat, as a facilitator. Where does all that come from in your background? How do you learn all that?
In my genes.
Yeah?
I don't know. I don't know. It just comes like this because I don't know. Because I don't like to talk too much about myself, but maybe because I treat all people equally. I don't care if it's a taxi driver or somebody who cleans the office or if it's a scientist. Yeah?
How many people do you have working for you?
Well, we have a staff. We have nearly 2,500 and plus 1,000 who are young investigators also being paid by us.
Yeah.
And around 11,000 scientific users coming. So they are not working for me. They are usually working for themselves. Yeah,
that's what.
And you have to give them some freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also have to focus a little bit the deviation sometimes.
How many of them are very big egos?
Or quite a few. But as a particle physicist, you learn that the big ego doesn't help you. You can have the big ego, but if you don't give something to your partners, they won't give you something, and you are lost.
Yeah. Because it is the cliche that people who haven't overcome the threshold and got into science like myself, we have this idea that scientists are really obsessed with themselves, obsessed with their own success, looking for the Nobel Prize.
Maybe there are some, but this is a minority. I think most are not obsessed, or at least they are focusing on finding out new things, on the knowledge gain.
Yeah.
They are not so much focused on themselves. They want to find something, to learn something. And then they realize that we are so small.
Yeah.
And that counts, that you realize, that you find out where your place is.
Okay, you've got all these people working together for a huge institution, massive resources. Where does the money come from in this day and age? I mean, this is an age of austerity that we're living in.
Yeah, but I think it's exactly the point now to invest in research. Because if you don't invest in research now, you break something. Yeah? That means you break part of you lose part of the future. If people in the 20th century would have done the same thing, maybe breaking or stopping research, we would live completely differently. Yeah? Because all what we are doing is based on research, and a lot is based on basic research.
It sounds like a difficult conversation, though, that you must have on a regular basis with the politicians, because what you're saying to them is, I can give you subatomic insights, but I want taxpayers' money.
No, I tell them it's well invested taxpayers' money, because what do they gain from that? They gain from that extremely well-educated young people. Yeah? You should not forget we have nearly 3,000 young people now performing their PhD thesis at the Large Hadron Collider worldwide. And half of them, immediately once they receive their PhD, go into the private enterprise, in the private sector. So we are educating for academia and at the same time also for the private sector. So you gain these knowledgeable people who have learned to work in an international environment, which is more and more important today because everything globalizes. And we have to develop new technologies in order to do this research. So you gain immediately on these things. Now, gaining on directly for society from our results themselves, from the research itself, is very difficult to predict, because it's basic science. That means you have a target, and that target or a goal, this is to get knowledge. You know that this knowledge will bring you further, and at some stage it might be useful for society, but you don't know when, and you don't know where. And there is a very nice quote from Michael Faraday from 1850 when he was working on a study of electricity. His finance minister was asking him, Mr. Faraday, this is very nice what you are doing there, but what can it be used for? And his answer is the perfect answer to my mind. And he said, honestly, sir, I don't know it, but maybe one day you can tax it. Okay?
That would have gone down well with the politicians.
Yes.
Yeah. OK, the organisation we're talking about, CERN, has provided the backdrop, the location for, as we've already seen a wee little bit, one of the great scientific adventures of our time, the hunt to track down the Higgs particle. It's a fascinating story. Here it is.
It's a great day.
July 2012. The scientists at the CERN Research Center greeted the long-awaited news with a huge round of applause.
As a layman, I would now say, I think we have it. You agree? Yeah.
The scientists had been searching for the Higgs boson for decades. Finally, they were sure they'd found it. It's the last building block in the standard model of quantum physics, with which physicists describe the structure of known matter. To conduct this basic research, CERN built the Underground Particle Accelerator, the LHC, near Geneva. Conditions inside the 27-kilometer-long tunnel are quite extreme.
The LHC is the coldest ring in the universe. We don't know of any other 27-kilometer ring that's colder. Even outer space is a bit warmer than the LHC ring.
Inside, two opposing beams of protons are smashed together at speeds close to that of light, simulating the state of the universe immediately after the Big Bang. Huge detectors measure the particles released by the collision. This is where the Higgs boson left its traces. It lends its mass to the 29 elementary particles known up until now. The Scottish physicist Peter Higgs was visibly moved by the experimental proof of the theory that he'd proposed. It's opened the way to a new chapter in particle physics.
Wonderful stuff seeing Peter Higgs there. When was the first time in your life, in your career, that you can actually remember hearing the words Higgs particle? Must have been a long while ago, yeah?
It's a long while ago, yes, yeah. Because we are looking for this beast since quite some time, yeah, because we knew everything about it, all its properties, because they are predicted by this so-called standard model.
Yeah.
The only thing we did not know, does it exist at all? Yeah. That means we did not know where its mass would be, and therefore we were searching since quite some time.
And did you get, what you heard about the particle, did you very quickly think, wow, this is a challenge for me, this is a kind of a Holy Grail?
No, the Holy Grail is the whole project, so to speak. Because the whole project goes far beyond the Higgs particle. We are trying to look for many, many more things.
OK. I mean, I'm using the language of the Holy Grail because I want to move on to something. I mean, you and I talked a couple of years ago, and in the press, we'd been hearing a lot of journalists talking, the media talking about your work, and they'd been using this term, God's particle.
Yes. And
at the time, I put it to you, is that useful? Is that relevant? And you said, no. Yeah. Now I hear you've become a little bit more accustomed to it. That was a quote that I heard. Why?
It's exactly as you say. I still don't like the word because it has nothing to do with God. Because if God would have created, or if you assume that God has created all the particles, then all particles should be God particles, yeah? And not only this one. But I have been, I'm now used to it, so to speak, and I think it has helped us in publicizing the result. Yeah. But do you know how it came about, this name?
Tell me.
Leon Lederman, the Nobel Prize winner from the US,
yeah.
And he was writing a book about particle physics and especially about this particle, which is so difficult to find, yeah? And he wanted to call the book The Goddamn Particle. And his publisher said, it will not sell like this. Drop the damn. Okay, that's it.
Point made. All of the work you're doing and all of the what you're telling me about, it all takes place against the backdrop of a big debate that's been going on for at least a decade, probably longer, about the relationship between science and religion. What's your contribution to that debate?
Well, we have started to contribute to that debate. And we had a first workshop in 2012, which we called At the Interface of Knowledge. Yeah?
The interface.
The interface of knowledge. And I call the interface of knowledge. Here you have the results from science. And here you have what you can call belief or philosophy, etc. And I think there's a great zone in between. And one has to talk together to try to
When you say there's a zone in between, there's a gap, there's an abyss, or do you mean there's an overlap?
There's an overlap. Sort of overlap, yeah, because some of the results are not yet accepted, or some of the results might be debatable. But you have first to find a common language.
Yeah.
Because if a scientist or a physicist calls something, this is a proof. If the philosopher calls it a proof, that's a different meaning behind the proof. So we had a first workshop where we had presentations by scientists and presentations by philosophers and also people from theology, just to see how the talking is. And now we have to see how to continue that dialogue. But that happens at several places, and I think we have to do that more and more, because after all, we should not work in isolation. Yeah, we have to talk to each other.
There was one scientist, I can't remember who it was, but I can remember reading this, that one scientist said, science is also about making a leap of faith.
I'm not sure if it makes a leap of faith, but I think it moves maybe the region where faith is active.
That's interesting. Yeah. A lot of the people who work for you, when I see them giving interviews and what have you, they have the luster, they have the glow in their eye.
Yes.
That is the same kind of
I hope
luster.
I have it too.
You have it too.
But
it looks like exactly the same kind of look that people have who are very serious about their religion.
Yes, but if you are serious about what you are doing, you should like it. You should love it.
Absolutely.
And that should be seen in your eyes.
Yeah.
If I don't see it in your eyes, then you don't tell me the right thing.
Okay, let's have a look. We've got today with us. We've got this wonderful book about the Large Hadron Collider, where the particle collider that is your big machine at the heart of your research. And what we find in this book, there's some wonderful photos, and many of them are of the people who work for you, the kind of people we've just been talking about. Let's just have a look at one or two of those photos, and you could perhaps tell me about that photo.
That's a theorist, a very well-known theorist, that's John Ellis, who was instrumental in our theory division. He's now retired, but still active. But yeah, he's developing theories.
Okay, and when you talk about he's developing theories, when you see that stuff on the blackboard at the back, yeah,
I don't understand it.
You don't understand it. Oh,
I hope he does. He
that's a great relief to me, because I was assuming that you look at that and you read it like I read the football results or something like that.
No, look, there are specialists and.
Okay, let's have a look at another one. Oh, that is a wonderful shot.
This is a fantastic shot, and I can guarantee to you that the person sitting there would know exactly where to find which document, unless you start cleaning the office.
Yeah, that's his office at CERN.
That's his office at CERN, or that was his office at CERN. He's, I think, now retired.
And the reason why you're telling me that he knows exactly where to find what he's looking for is because you are that kind of person, I'm guessing.
Yes, I'm normally also not a person who is known to keep order. So I'm very happy that I have very good assistants who bring my things into order. The problem is, I don't know where they are. I completely depend on them. But that's called delegation, and that's called cooperation.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at one more from the book. Aha.
Yeah, that's a young lady who... We were working together many years ago in another experiment, and she's a climber, and so she trained there.
And she's a scientist who works at CERN as well, yeah?
Yes.
OK, that's good, because that leads me on to the question. Most people, again, another cliché, assume that science geeks are men.
No, we also have ladies.
How many?
Around 20%, roughly, which is quite good for such technical science. We have quite a few young ladies. I'm very pleased about it. Who operate the machine, this big accelerator.
Oh, great stuff.
So it's fantastic. Yeah.
And is that number on the rise?
It's slowly rising, but
slowly?
It takes time.
Slowly?
It takes time, yeah. Because, well, you see, if you don't, you first have to have the people who do the studies. Yeah, they have to go into university. Then they have to stay at the university. They have to continue. So, and then only after that we plug in. So it depends what comes from the bottom. But we are trying to help everybody to make working and life easier at CERN.
OK. Now, we've just been looking at some of the photos from this wonderful book. If you'd like to have a go at winning a copy of the book, called quite simply LHC, then all you have to do is to visit our website at www.dw.de/Talking Germany. You'll find all the information you need there, and there is just one thing you ought to bear in mind. Please do get your emails to us within 14 days. Now, on a different matter, the academic world here in Germany has been thrown into turmoil by the recent resignation of the country's long-serving Minister for Education and Research. Her name, Annette Schavan, and she was a close political ally of Chancellor Angela Merkel. But she was forced to quit over allegations of plagiarism in the dissertation that she wrote 3 decades ago. Before we talk about this story, let's have a quick look now at how and why plagiarism is being exposed.
IT professor Deborah Weber-Wulff doesn't think much of witch hunts. Nevertheless, she's been working in the internet community for years, exposing plagiarism in doctoral theses. To packed lecture halls, she reports on her methods and tries to awaken people's awareness of how important honest scholarship is in the academic world. There have been a spate of recent high-profile plagiarism controversies involving German politicians, brought to light on a variety of internet platforms. According to an internet survey, the typical plagiarism spotter is a male graduate, about 38 years of age, who is driven by a sense of injustice.
People who've written their own doctoral theses and really worked on them see people who've acquired their titles by cutting and pasting a quick pastiche together and parading them proudly. They're furious, they're angry.
When CDU politician Annette Schavan's doctoral title was revoked in February 2013, it led to her resignation. For 8 years, she had been Germany's Minister for Education and Research. In 1980, she wrote her thesis in philosophy at Heinrich Heine University in Düsseldorf. An internal university commission checked her work after accusations of plagiarism and declared it invalid. Richard Münch is a professor in Bamberg. In the early 1980s, he was also at the university in Düsseldorf and knew Schavan's doctoral advisor. Some say her work should have been checked more closely, but that wasn't as easy back then.
Nowadays, you can use a search engine and find the appropriate passages. Back then, you'd have to go through all the original sources yourself to see to what extent text passages had been plagiarized. You'd have had to employ someone for several weeks to do it.
Deborah Weber-Wulff doesn't see herself as a hunter stalking her prey, but as a researcher. Like most of her fellow campaigners, she thinks exposing plagiarism is important.
All we have, the currency we have in scholarship, is our honesty. We have to say this or that person wrote such, and this is my contribution. In scholarship, we talk about standing on the shoulders of giants, and we should name those giants.
Where Annette Schavan is concerned, at least, the internet and academic communities are divided. Deborah Weber-Wulff says that other people who were involved in more extreme cases have retained their doctorates. But that doesn't affect her mission.
Rolf-Dieter Heuer, PhD, Heidelberg University, 1977. Yeah, Professor, Hamburg University. You must have thought long and hard about that story. Yeah? Can you share those thoughts with us?
Well, at least I have followed the story because it was everywhere in the social media and in the newspapers. But I'm not living in Germany, but I'm of course following it. First of all, we have everywhere in science we have to work to the highest ethical standards. That's absolutely clear. Yeah? Science has to keep its credibility. That's one thing. But also people who are looking into plagiarism or in the work, they should also follow these standards, of course. And it was a lot discussed in the social media without enough input. I mean, you talk about things when you only know a little bit about it. You need to know more about it. What is behind it? What was the value of this work? Nobody has ever discussed, as far at least what I saw, nobody has discussed what was the value of the thesis there. Of course, you have to be credible. You have to be up to the highest standards. That means you have to quote. You have to make the citations. That's absolutely clear. I fully support that. But I mean, 30 years ago, it was also more difficult to do all these things. But I think the debate was also wrong because the report about the PhD thesis was published or was open to the public before even the person involved has seen it. Is this the right way to do it? Yeah?
Important question.
You have to follow certain standards there too. And what we do usually when we have problems, be it technical or non-technical, we ask external experts to assess it. To do it only internally, I would do it differently.
Okay. Is too much prominence given in Germany to the doctor title? It's a bit of a fetish in Germany. I mean, in politics, we used to have Dr. Kohl. Helmut Kohl would be introduced as a doctor, and people outside Germany would think, what, is he a medical doctor? And people put it on their doorbells, and at meetings, people are introduced as Dr. so-and-so and Dr. so-and-so. Yeah?
Well, for some people, maybe yes. In some countries, in my play, also even a stronger role, even a more prominent role. I can tell you my business card contains neither the doctor nor the professor.
Okay.
It's just the name.
Yep.
I did my PhD because I wanted to stay in research. Yep. And then you do your PhD. And actually the PhD brings you forward because it's a project where in principle, it's a project where you learn to do something on your own. Of course, still with guidance, but you learn to do a project. Yeah? And so it's a normal way to progress in academia. But if I'm called doctor or not, I usually don't care.
There's an irony to all this that Annette Schavan, the minister who had to go, we've just been hearing about her story. She was particularly involved and much admired for her efforts to boost the status of German universities in recent years. How good are you? No, you want to come back on there? There's a point you want to make. Tell me.
Yeah, I think she did a very good work there. And if you look how much she did in order to secure the funding for education and research, I must say she did a very good job there. Yeah? I mean, this is something which one has to admire. Of course, it's different from receiving a PhD, so there are two different stories. But what she did during that time, I think, was, at least seen from the outside, compared with other countries, very, very useful and very good for German research. But concerning German universities, I mean, to have an excellent university is fine, but can a university be excellent in all aspects, on all fields? I think it's more important to ask the question, in which fields do we have excellent universities? Yeah? So, University A is excellent in for example, in physics, but not as excellent maybe in agriculture. Another one is excellent in agriculture or social science.
So what is Germany good at? Give me a very quick answer.
We have very good German universities concerning physics and particle physics, I must say.
There you go.
Very good.
Yeah, okay.
But that's my own field, so I know it best, okay?
A multifaceted genius, Goethe. I sometimes wonder whether for people outside Germany, Goethe isn't a little bit like the Higgs particle, that many people have heard about it, but they don't really know what it is. Yeah?
Could well be.
Could well be. Goethe for you?
Maybe even for some Germans. Okay.
What does Goethe mean to you?
He means a lot. He was a fantastic writer.
Yep.
I quote sometimes pieces of Faust, I mean, because that's a very... I had to work a lot on the Faust in school at that time, and at the beginning I was not so sure, but then I started to like it. Yeah. And at the same time, he was also a scientist. He was interested in science. Yep. And I think he's one of the good examples. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci is another perfect example of this type of science and arts together.
Yep. It's interesting because you're talking about quotes, you're talking about Goethe. I have written one down here from Goethe. Man errs as long as he strives. It's a nice quote, yeah? And it sounds an awful lot like the kind of scientific methodology that I've heard you quoting, speaking about. Progress is not a linear development.
No.
It's more or less the same thing, yeah?
Yes. Because linear is a sort of based always on the old thing. So it's just a continuous development. If you want to make a leap forward, You have to bring in unconventional ideas, maybe blue sky research, and that brings a leap. Yeah, and this is what I would call innovation. Yep. This goes up.
Yep.
This is nonlinear.
It brings to mind that there's a very famous quote by the Irish writer Samuel Beckett. Yeah, try again, fail better.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, because you fail quite often, but you learn from your failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you learn more from failures than from your successes.
Sometimes. You know you work together with an awful lot of very, very bright people, very intelligent people. Have you ever met a universal genius?
Universal is far.
It's a big term, isn't it? It's a big ask.
I met people who are extremely bright, extremely sharp.
Yeah.
But universal is too much.
Too much. OK. We've talked about Germans reading Goethe, or not reading Goethe, as the case may be. I think most Germans, if you asked them, would be able to name a politician or two, a racing driver, a sports star, a banker, possibly a journalist. Yeah. They probably wouldn't be able to name a scientist. Is there something wrong there? Is there a problem?
There's something wrong.
Yep.
And it's a problem. Yeah?
Tell me.
Because at the beginning of the 20th century, people were talking about science, about scientists, about relativity theory, quantum mechanics, whatever. I'm not sure if they understood a lot, but they were talking about it.
It was exciting.
It was exciting.
They were heroes.
Yes, and that's missing today. Yeah? Because if you take away everything what is coming out of relativity theory or from quantum mechanics, you take away all the silicon developments, you take away your GPS, because Einstein is in the GPS system. If you don't use Einstein, you don't end up in your studio, you end up in the Spree. And for the outside people, the Spree is a river here in Berlin, okay? And you would like to avoid this. Yeah. So you need this basic science, and you need to talk about science, because science is the basis of what we are doing, on which our life is based on.
You need to generate more enthusiasm with school kids. I mean, you talked about your teacher, you talked about being at school and picking up on science. You know, my kids and the circles that they move in, there aren't many of them that are saying, I can see myself working in science.
Well, maybe it's also sometimes because the parents are not...
You mean I spend too much time reading Goethe?
No. You have to do both things. Yeah? You have to be supportive, but not demanding. Yeah? That's I think, the right balance. I think the general attitude is that science is too difficult.
Yeah.
Science is not difficult. Yeah? Because you can understand at least some basic facts of science without mathematics. It's the logic which counts. And once you overcome the threshold that it's difficult, then you start maybe not loving it, but accepting it and sometimes talking about it. Look, I had a taxi driver in Helsinki who drove me to the airport asking where I'm going. And I said, I fly to Geneva. And he said, what I'm doing there? Well, I'm working at CERN. He said, okay, I know about your work.
Oh.
Because I saw the film Angels and Demons. Yeah. And through that film, I got so much interested in your science that I watch your webpage every day. This is what we need.
That is enthusiasm.
That is enthusiasm.
OK, we've just got time for a couple of quiz questions at the end of the show, the traditional quiz. Some tough ones, philosophical questions, I'm afraid. Wisdom or knowledge?
Wisdom.
Inspiration or persistence?
Persistence.
Mechanisms or miracles?
I think I take the mechanism.
I knew you were going to. We're going to have to leave it there. Ever the scientist. That's your lot. Rolf-Dieter Heuer, a charming, diplomatic man of science. If you want to find out more, do read my blog on the Talking Germany internet site. You can also, of course, watch any shows that you might have missed online. And if you've enjoyed today's show as much as I have, then do come back next week. Until then, bye-bye and tschüss.